Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're doing something incredible. We're stepping right beneath the humid, dense jungle canopy to experience the living, breathing civilization of the ancient Maya. And we're not going to reconstruct this world through the decrees of ancient kings or the spectacle of war. Instead, we're looking at the everyday survival, the heavy labor, and the sheer absolute ingenuity of ordinary people. By bringing together archaeological evidence and ecological data, we're going to uncover exactly how millions of people thrived in an environment that totally defies our modern assumptions. So to really understand the Maya, we have to start with a massive historical question. How in the world did a huge civilization, literally millions strong, manage to master a fragile environment constrained by severe seasonal droughts, incredibly thin topsoils, and a complete lack of permanent surface water in so many areas? We almost always assume that large ancient populations were just at the mercy of their geography, destined to eventually collapse under the environmental strain. But historical reality tells a completely different story. The ancient Maya didn't just survive their landscape, they brilliantly and painstakingly engineered it to guarantee their survival. Part 1. Uncovering the engineered canopy. Let's shed our modern misconceptions of a pristine, untouched jungle. The real key to this sweeping historical revelation is LiDAR. By firing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft, modern archaeologists can essentially digitally strip away that thick rainforest canopy. It's like having X-ray vision for the jungle. This technology detects incredibly subtle shifts in the earth. We're talking mere 5 to 30 centimeter variations in elevation. Where historical consensus once just saw an impenetrable, wild jungle that had swallowed up a few ruined temples, the data reveals something entirely different. A staggering, meticulously planned, low-density urban sprawl extending for miles and miles in every single direction. These sweeping maps of cities like Tikal and Karakol completely shatter a long-held historical myth. For decades, scholars honestly believed Maya centers were just vacant, ceremonial spaces, basically empty stone monuments that the peasantry only visited during grand festivals. But in reality, these were vast, bustling, dispersed neighborhoods. Ordinary families lived scattered all across the landscape, seamlessly integrating their homes directly into their agricultural lands. And these sprawling communities were bound together not by tightly packed streets, but by raised white stone causeways called sakbiyub, which made trade, travel, and social connection possible. And when we zoom in on the steep, rugged terrain of settlements like Guiharal, the digital elevation models reveal these rhythmic, parallel contour lines etched right into the hillsides. These are extensive, highly engineered agricultural terraces. Just imagine the immense, generational labor required by ordinary families working out in the sweltering tropical heat to construct endless retaining walls of dry-laid stone. These structures covered a staggering 80% of the city of Karakol. And this wasn't for aesthetic beauty, it was an absolute necessity to capture precious topsoil and hold it fast against the devastating erosive deluge of the wet season rains. Part 2, the sustainable milpa cycle. Let's transition from the grand urban scale down into the fertile plots that ensured everyday survival. To truly get how they survived day to day, we really need to recognize how fundamentally different the Maya approach to the earth was compared to ours. Modern Western agriculture often relies on destructive monoculture, deeply plowed, singular crop fields that invite massive soil erosion and totally deplete nutrients. The Maya, however, used the forest garden. Instead of permanently clearing the land, they cultivated a highly biodiverse, intercropped mosaic. By maintaining a shaded canopy to protect the earth and using deep tree roots to anchor the soil, their fields were remarkably resistant to erosion. They didn't fight the forest at all. They literally mimicked its natural architecture. This regenerative philosophy is perfectly captured in the 20-year milpa cycle. The whole process starts in late spring with the sensory snap and that heavy, lingering wood smoke of a controlled slash and burn. Now, this isn't an act of destruction. It's a calculated, vital release of nutrients back into the thin soil. Next comes layered intercropping. Tall, sturdy corn stalks act as a natural scaffolding for climbing beans, while broadleaf squash covers the ground to trap critical moisture, all planted right alongside deep, nutrient-dense root crops like manioc. After a few intensive years, the plot is deliberately left to fallow. It slowly regenerates until it completely returns to a closed canopy forest. It is a brilliant, sustainable loop. And the demographic impact of this methodology, it was immense. Hard archaeological data shows us that just one planting cycle on the stone terraces of Guiharal could yield 25.6 metric tons of corn. That is an unbelievable amount of food. It represents way more than mere survival. It generated the surplus and stability families needed to actually thrive. When you combine that with continuous multicropping and the rich, untamed diversity of the surrounding forest gardens, this agricultural system provided the massive caloric bedrock required to support hundreds of thousands of people across those sprawling lowland cities. If you want to see the proof, just look at the empirical soil data derived from these ancient terraces. It forces a complete reevaluation of indigenous engineering. Look at this. Even today, over a millennium after they were abandoned to the jungle, the organic matter and cation exchange capacities of these engineered soils wildly exceed the nutrient requirements for modern corn growth. The Maya didn't just extract sustenance from a fragile earth. Through the systematic, careful management of decaying plant matter, household waste, and really precise terrace construction, they actively built richer, darker, more fertile soil than nature alone could ever provide. Part 3, Masters of Water Purification. Because in this environment, managing water was a matter of life and death. Think about it. While food can easily be stored, water is a far more precarious constraint. For 5 brutal months of the year, the tropical rains completely stopped. The lush jungle violently transformed into a parched green desert. Household depressions cracked and dried up, and the few distant rivers dropped incredibly low, running murky and absolutely choked with waterborne disease. In this harsh seasonal reality, immense centrally located urban reservoirs weren't just conveniences. They were the absolute lifeblood of Maya society. They actually formed the core of a social contract. Rural farmers willingly gave their labor and goods to the city centers in direct exchange for access to this life-saving water. But here's the catch. Keeping millions of liters of stagnant water from turning toxic over 5 scorching human months requires profound scientific ingenuity. The Corriental Reservoir in Tikal utilized a staggering chemical filtration system. Engineers constructed porous, woven mats, dry-laid limestone walls, and beds of crystalline quartz to trap physical sediments. But most incredibly, they used volcanic zeolite sand imported from miles away. Zeolite acts as a molecular sieve, naturally filtering out dangerous heavy metals and deadly microbes. This literally means the Maya were chemically purifying municipal water nearly 2 millennia before such systems even existed in the modern world. And it goes beyond just chemical filtration. They demonstrated a masterful integration of biology and engineering by cultivating constructed wetlands. First, they lined the porous limestone bedrock with thick clay to stop toxic calcium from leaching into the drinking supply. Then, they intentionally planted water lilies and reeds to naturally absorb excess nitrogen, all while carefully maintaining trees along the banks to provide cool shade and halt toxic algae blooms. The delicate white water lily even served as a highly visible biological gauge of supreme water purity. In a perfect closed-loop system, the nutrient-rich organic muck was periodically dredged right from the reservoir floor and carried out to the fields as a potent fertilizer. Part 4. Cultivating the stingless bees. Let's descend into the buzzing, sensory world of the household garden. Stepping away from the grand urban infrastructure for a moment, let's look at the most intimate, microscopic level of daily life. Right here, ordinary families practiced meliponiculture, the ancient domestication and careful breeding of native stingless bees. Long before the European honeybee ever arrived in the Americas, the Maya kept the revered Shunan cob in hollowed logs suspended right within their shaded familial courtyards. These gentle, tireless insects were essentially the buzzing engine that kept the sprawling forest gardens alive. This relationship with the Zunan kabad was absolutely crucial for everyday survival. These bees served as the primary pollinators for over 750 species of Mesoamerican forest plants, ensuring the rapid, robust regeneration of the milpa cycle. But they also provided vital physical goods. Their wood honey is profoundly medicinal, packed with antimicrobial compounds that the Maya used to treat severe wounds, burns, and even eye infections. On top of that, their heavy, durable wax was an essential architectural and craft material, used to seal storage vessels tightly against the relentless rot of the humid jungle, and later on, utilized for the precision casting of metal objects. But traditional beekeeping was never merely an agricultural industry for the Maya. As modern researchers and descendant communities point out, it embodies a concept known as saberes, which is this deep, integrated system of knowledge, daily practice, sacred belief, and real emotional connection. It represents a living biocultural heritage. Tending to the hives was an act of reciprocity. It was a profound reflection of an entire civilization whose survival was rooted in living in absolute harmony with the intricate mechanisms of the natural world rather than ever seeking to dominate or exhaust it. Part 5, Ancient Solutions for Today. Let's pull back and see how this all connects to our modern environmental crises. Understanding this history really requires a complete paradigm shift in how we view the ancient world. The Maya did not passively inhabit a wild, untamed jungle. They actively relied on a vast mosaic of built, managed, and selectively untouched areas. In fact, botanists and ecologists today recognize that the so-called primary rainforest stretching across the modern Maya region, it's actually a descendant forest. That incredibly dense concentration of useful, medicinal, and fruit-bearing trees we see flourishing today is the direct, living ecological inheritance of millennia of ancient Maya resource management. Ultimately, history is not merely a catalog of the dead. It's a mirror reflecting our own present vulnerabilities. Our modern world is currently buckling under the immense weight of climate change, rampant soil degradation, and terrifying water scarcity. If the ancient Maya could engineer a sustainable, low-density urban civilization that thrived in a highly restrictive environment for millennia, well, perhaps we shouldn't view their molecular water filters, regenerative forest gardens, and deep ecological knowledge merely as fascinating relics of a lost past. Instead, they stand as profound, proven blueprints for surviving our own precarious future. Thank you for joining me for this explainer.